when it comes to to fulfill the purpose of assessment and evaluation, the teacher need to set certain criteria and identify certain parameters with related to the subject he or she is going to teach to the students in a class. So the very first thing the teacher need to consider is what is my objective as a teacher, and what I am able to do, or what kind of performance it is possible for me to develop among my student population. So when we said student is able to remember something, student is able to understand something, student is able to define something, or student is able to correct something, create something, these are the different performance parameters that we are defining for the students in with respect to the subject. So that is nothing but the learning outcomes of that particular subject. So when it comes to the concept of learning outcomes are defined at three different levels. One is program objectives, or it is also being said in literature or in different policies as program educational objective. Say, for example, the student in a diploma branch, after the completion of 3 years of formal education, when he or she is able to get that diploma certificate, whether the student is able to get all those objectives, that is the need of that particular program. So is it the knowledge, is it the skill, is it the behavior that the institute is able to modify among that student population? So if that diploma education after 3 years, or in BTech after 4 years of getting formal education, if the student is able to achieve those program objective, it means at institute level, being a faculty, we are able to develop the knowledge, skill, and behavior among that candidate with respect to that particular branch. So when it comes to the skill, maybe mechanical engineering needs a different kind of skill as compared to a computer science engineer. Computer science engineer need a different kind of skill as compared to chemical engineer. So there is a different kind of skill set, different knowledge dimension that every program is going to cater. So those are the program objective. It is totally dependent upon the nature of the program. It is totally dependent upon the knowledge dimensions that is being classified. So once the program, say we take an example of chemical engineering or mechanical engineering, say the program is mechanical engineering. Now in mechanical engineering, there may be 32 to 36 different subjects we are going to offer to that particular candidate. So those 32 or 36 subjects are nothing but the courses. So there may be number of courses we are going to offer to that candidate with respect to the program objective. So we divide the program. What are the different knowledge, skill, and behavioral parameter that we need to consider depending upon the curriculum is being designed, and we offered different kind of subjects to our students. Those subjects are the different courses that we are going to offer to the student to enhance the level of the performance as per the program objective. And in a specific course, say for example, take an example of the course C. In course C, there are certain units or certain topics that are classified or given as per the curriculum. Those topics or those units are going to fulfill those course objective. So what is the purpose of this particular course? Say there are common courses, communication skill. The purpose of the course communication skill is to enhance verbal as well as non-verbal communication of that particular candidate. When we said total quality management as a subject, industrial safety as a subject, so these subjects are of different nature, have different kind of knowledge and skill requirement, but these skill and knowledge dimensions are going to map with the program objective at the end. So when it comes to the learning outcome written at program level, course level, and then as a teacher, we are going to write those learning outcomes for the different lessons that we are going to take for that particular subject or for that particular course. So when it comes to the evaluation or assessment of these learning outcomes, that whether the students are able to achieve those learning outcomes or not, we need to reverse it. So whether these learning outcomes that as a teacher I'm going to define, that learning outcomes are going to map with my course objectives or outcome or not, and those courses outcome are able to fulfill the program outcomes that we are able to define in the initial of the formal education. So in nutshell, when it comes to the learning outcomes, it can be at three different levels. One is at program level, second can be at course level, and third can be at lesson level. So in another term, when we said program learning outcomes in nutshell or in simple terms when I'm saying the aim or the goal of my subject. So aim is defined at a program outcome level and goal is defined at course outcome level. If I'm talking in a layman language that what is program outcome or what is course outcome, so when I'm saying vision of that institute, so in a technical institution, vision means that my student after getting formal education must be able to absorb by the word of work. So that is our future vision for the student population. So in line with the demand of the stakeholder, it may be industries, it may be other organizations, we are going to define certain program level outcomes and certain course level outcome. Say in computer science and engineering, AI is a new field. There are many new fields that are entering nowadays in technical education system, so these are the demands of the stakeholders. So whenever we are defining our program outcomes and course level outcome, the broader aim and goal of that particular course need to reflect that what is the demand of this particular course, maybe in the next 3 years or maybe in the next 4 years. So that will define a broader objective of that particular course. We need to have a future vision that after 3 years or after 4 years of formal education, what my student will be able to do after the completion of this specific program at institute level. So when we said aim and goal, that is in line with the program outcome and course outcome. So it provides us a broader objective and a broader aim that what this program is going to serve to the different stakeholders for which the student is getting formal education. So that is the major value or the major objective that is defined with the help of program outcome and course outcome. So there are many in many policies, I would say, or in many organization, many of the faculty members are using the terms learning outcomes and learning objectives same, but these two terms have different meanings. So when we said learning objective, what will be taught during the course or during the program? So whenever we talk about the learning objective, it is the teacher intended outcome. So as a teacher, what I want my student to do, what I need to taught to my students so that they are able to fulfill the vision of that particular program. So when we are defining the different learning objectives as a teacher, my objective is, say for example, as a teacher what I need to do, that is my reflection for that particular course. Say for example, for a similar subject or for the same subject to two different sections, there are two different faculty members, so those faculty member may have different teaching approaches. दो टीचर्स की डिफरेंट अप्रोचेस हो सकती हैं टू टीच अ गिवन सब्जेक्ट. So the first teacher intention may be different, the second teacher intention may be varied. So learning objective may vary as per the style of the teacher, and it is the teacher who is going to decide that what I need to do to complete or achieve those program outcomes or those course outcomes. So it is the reflection of the teacher performance or what kind of teaching learning activities the teacher need to perform to fulfill the vision of the program outcome. So when it comes to the learning outcome is for the student population. Learning objective is for the teacher population, but when we set the learning outcome is for the student population, means it is mainly concerned with the achievement of the student. Many of you already maybe already writing the different learning outcomes for your courses. So whenever we are writing a learning outcome, we always write in terms of what my student will be able to do after the completion of this particular unit or after the completion of this particular topic. So when I said the learning objective is as per the intention of the teacher, learning outcome is for the student performance. So are the statement of what a student will be able to do or demonstrate at the completion of a certain sequence of the learning course or program. कभी भी ऐसा नहीं होना, फॉर एग्जाम्पल द ब्रांच ऑफ सिविल इंजीनियरिंग, ये कभी नहीं होगा कि आपको सर्वे 2 पहले पढ़ाया जाएगा और सर्वे 1 बाद में पढ़ाया जाएगा. There is always a sequence of teaching different courses or different subject, because we want whatever learning outcomes we are going to describe for our student, those learning outcome must be achieved by that student population. So that is why there is a sequence of activity the teacher is going to perform and a structured kind of experience we are going to give to our student. Experiences kahan se create karega teacher? By defining different learning objectives. कि अगर मुझे नॉलेज डेवलप करना है, व्हाट आर द डिफरेंट ऑर्गेनाइज्ड एक्सपीरियंसेस दैट आई एम एबल टू क्रिएट फॉर माय स्टूडेंट. If I want to develop skill, what kind of teaching style I need to follow, what kind of environment I need to create at institute level. So in a theory class, one teacher can be verbally explaining something, another teacher can be demonstrating that particular activity to give a concrete kind of experience to the student. So when we set teacher objective or the learning outcome, or learning objective or the learning outcome, it is teacher intended activities that need to be mapped with the student achievement that we wish our student to perform in the sequence of teaching learning activities. So this is the major difference between learning objective and learning outcomes. So my first question to all of you is, when it comes to defining learning outcomes, what are the different things that we need to consider? Yes, any member from the group, any faculty who is writing learning outcome for the subject or for the lesson. Yes sir.
यूज का ध्यान रखना पड़ेगा और कंटेंट जो है सारा कवर होना चाहिए और साथ में जो ब्लूम टैक्सोनॉमी के पॉइंट्स हैं आपको कितने कहां तक अचीव कर सकते हैं उसमें उसको मैक्सिमम यूटिलाइजेशन कर सकते हैं उसके.
Thank you very much, sir. So very rightly added by sir that when it comes to writing the learning outcome, there is some sort of taxonomy, that is Bloom's taxonomy, that we need to follow at institute level while writing those learning outcome. And broadly, when we are writing learning outcome, we need to focus that at institute level what we are expecting from our student population. So whatever your expectation at institute level, that is in line with the mission and vision of your institute. So as per the mission and vision of your institute, the management need to see what kind of teaching practice is being followed at departmental level or at institute level, and whether these practices help us to achieve that broader vision or mission of the institute. So in line with that, as per the nature of the subject, we are going to write different learning outcomes. But ultimately, as shown to all of you in the last slide, whatever lesson level outcomes the teacher is writing, that lesson level outcome need to map with the course level outcome, and broadly it need to be mapped with the program outcomes. So if the course is demanding skill component or more skill related activities or practices need to be followed at institute level. If it is a theoretical understanding that we need to develop among student population, we need to write learning outcomes in such a manner that we are able to develop that understanding among student population. How we are going to do this? As a teacher, we need to define certain objective as per the demand of the subject, and we need to follow different, or we need to select different kind of instructional method and media to fulfill the demand of that particular course. Say for example, the subject of mathematics need practice, or any subject in engineering which have numerical ability to develop, so those subjects need practice sessions. So when the teacher is defining the teaching methodology, the instructional strategy, what teaching method I need to adopt, so maybe as a teacher I select that whiteboard or blackboard will serve the purpose. There is a step by step formation of the content, and along with the content formation I involve my class student to give more practice sessions to the student. In another way, the teacher from the subject of English or communication skill, so the communication skill faculty need to create the interest of the student or develop confidence among student to present information in accurate manner by using appropriate verbal as well as non-verbal behavior. So for that teacher, the best strategy may be giving demonstration kind of activity which the student will imitate, follow, and then certainly able to develop that level of excellence. So depending upon the learning outcome, the teacher need to define the instructional method and media by which he or she is able to achieve those learning outcomes. So when it comes to the learning outcome, it is not only that student is able to achieve, but at the same time, what practices the institute need to follow so that students are able to perform something as per those learning outcome that is being defined. So certain examples, for example, curriculum and teaching practices aim to link student learning experience to the word graduate will confront. So after the formal education, so when we said na program level outcome, so after the completion of that particular education, when my student is able to absorbed by the word of work, जब उसको जॉब मिलता है अपने एरिया में, अपने सेक्टर में, what the student is able to do with those experiences, he or she is able to gain in formal education. So जब हम अब हमारे करिकुलम में there are industrial internship, industrial training, minor project, major project, there are many extracurricular activities that we specifically provide to our student. So these kind of learning experiences help the student to know information about the outer world. इंडस्ट्री में जाएगा, he is able to see the machinery, he is able to see the processing over there, he is able to see the hierarchy that is working in that particular organization. He or she is able to know what kind of communication channel is happening in outer organization, how they communicate, how they connect, how they perform certain activities, how at industry level they are following the safety and precaution. So that student have a sense of that particular environment, and the student is able to develop himself or herself over the period of time, so that he or she is able to map with the skills that the industry desired. So the kind of experiences we are giving to our student, those experiences will help the student to be absorbed efficiently and effectively in the outer world after the formal education. So that is why the curriculum, when we are defining or analyzing curriculum for the different branches of engineering, there is a different kind of knowledge and skill set that every curriculum demands for. Second is the learning objective. Say, for example, student will be taught the conceptual and theoretical tools used in the reasoning and problem solving, such as statistic, probability, logic, and decision theory. So, for a technical student, when it comes to the development of logic and analytical ability, that is an essential requirement for any technical candidate. So, that kind of learning objective need to be there with the faculty, that it is not just the remembering and lower level of understanding that we are going to develop among our student population, but my student must be able to analyze information. He or she must be able to synthesize a given amount of information. They are able to identify, they are able to compare, they are able to relate to the outer world, they are able to do something new with the learned information. So as a teacher, my objective is not only focusing on the student is able to define something, but that definition he or she is not able to apply somewhere in a given situation. So when the teacher is defining the learning objective and organizing classes in such a way, the kind of experiences that we are going to give to our student will create their vision for the education. So teacher can only develop theoretical understanding, teacher can also develop logical understanding depending upon how the teacher is organizing the sessions. So this is the teacher intended activity the teacher need to define, but teacher will define those activities as per the level of the students available with him or her. First, we need to identify what level of students available with us. After knowing the level of the student, the teacher can plan for different kind of experiences so that we can gradually improve the performance of the student. आप पहले दिन ही जाके नहीं कहोगे कि आपको अलजेब्रिक इक्वेशन नहीं आती. You will not be able to understand the subject of heat transfer or mass transfer. You need to develop that level of understanding that in 3 years or 4 years of the program, the student is able to develop that concept with the help of the faculty. So we need to facilitate the process of learning. When it comes to the learning outcome, at the end of the course, student will be able to demonstrate the ability to use mathematical and statistical techniques relevant to the business subject taught. टीचर ने इंटेंड क्या किया था? Problem solving such as statistic, probability, logic, and decision theory. Learning outcome is student is able to use that mathematical and statistical technique relevant to the business subject taught. So teacher intended need to be mapped with the student learning outcome. It means in teaching learning practices, whatever you are teaching, you are going to assess those parameters only. So as a teacher, if you are not giving real life examples to the student for the subject or the topic you are going to teach, in assessment and evaluation, you are not going to ask such statements to the student. First, you need to develop understanding, only then you are going to evaluate and assess the performance of the student. So the classes must be full of reflection based activity. Information is already available in abundance. Provide that information in a structured manner and use classes for practice based session so that we can develop the level of understanding among student population. So in nutshell, when it comes to the learning outcome, these are the descriptive statements. These are not general statement. Many of the teachers, when they're writing learning outcomes, they're writing as my student will be able to understand this. What do you mean by understanding? Understanding can be up to the lower level, understanding can be up to the higher level. So the descriptive statement will define what your student will be able to do after the completion of this unit, whether he or she is able to solve a given problem, whether he or she is able to, say for example, in an examination hall, when a numerical problem is given to the student and there are standard specification the student need to use, some of the students start saying that this particular parameter is missing from the statement. Those were the standard conditions, those will remain same. The teacher need not to give those standard specification in all kind of numerical problem. You need to memorize something and you need to apply as per the problem given to you. So when we are saying descriptive statement, so those descriptive statements are not generalized by nature. These are the specific teacher intended. The teacher want the student to understand or student to learn. So when I'm saying the student must be able to understand or student must be able to analyze, student must be able to interpret, I need to be very specific in those statement that what my student will be able to do. So in question paper, when you said what is force, force can be anything for anyone. आप यहाँ तीन लोग मेरे पास सेंटर में है, मे बी देर आर थ्री डिफरेंट डेफिनेशंस और थ्री डिफरेंट अंडरस्टैंडिंग आई एम एबल टू गेट फ्रॉम दिस पर्टिकुलर ग्रुप. But when I'm saying define force, I'm asking for a specific definition of force in scientific literature. When I'm saying give one example of force, I need a specific one example from the field of specialization. Define experiment. Compare grazing type of food chain and detritus type of food chain. Differentiate between deep and shallow foundation. Identify the mistake. Design a staircase. Design an engine for electrical vehicle of a given specification. So we are giving a concrete things to the student at what they need to do after the completion of this particular unit. In many of the papers, they write it as write a short note. Short note means what? So learning outcomes will define your question items. What kind of question item you need to give for those subject. So that will become the base for your assessment and evaluation. So when it comes to the learning outcome in simple terms, the teacher need to define what you are doing as a teacher. In a classroom environment, whatever you are doing as a teacher, and you must know why you are doing it, know what the students are learning as a result. So whatever teaching practices is being followed by you, is your student able to get something out of that? So as a teacher, मैंने बहुत अच्छा lecture prepare कर लिया. I have all kind of higher degrees with me. But if my students are not able to understand that subject or topic when delivered by me, it means somewhere I need to improve my teaching practices. It is not only the knowledge that is available with me, how I'm disseminating that information among student population as per their level so that learning result in a classroom environment. Make changes in curriculum based on that particular information. So whenever curriculum or syllabus given to the teacher, it is a maybe a one paragraph or two paragraph syllabus given to the faculty. Say diploma level student, when he or she entered in a BTech level course, so there are many subjects they have already gone through in their diploma education. Now they are reading or they are again revising those subjects at BTech level. It means when they are dealing with those subjects at diploma level and in engineering education, engineering institution, there must be some variation in terms of curriculum interpretation by the teacher. So at diploma level, there must be some sort of information the student is able to gain. In BTech level, there must be some advanced information given to that particular candidate as per the level of that particular degree. So when make changes in the curriculum, it is the teacher who is going to interpret or analyze that curriculum and use that information for planning different teaching learning activities. So learning outcomes will define the teacher intended outcomes and student intended outcome, and mapping both, we are going to analyze the information that is given in the curriculum. On this basis only, we are going to select different kind of practices that we need to follow for student population. So that we need to understand. Next is, what are the different characteristics of a good learning outcome? So when it comes to the characteristics of a good learning outcome is always written in terms of student behavior. So what my student will be able to do after the completion of this particular unit, after the completion of this particular lesson. So these are always written by using different action verbs. So as added by sir, that when it comes to the learning outcome, it is a Bloom's taxonomy that we are going to follow. So in a Bloom's taxonomy, there are some action oriented verbs that is available at the level of remembering, understanding, analysis, creation, and evaluation. So those action verbs need to be utilized while writing different learning outcome. So those must be specific. So in the last slide, when I said these are the descriptive statement, but not the generalized statement. So it is always a specific thing that we are going to ask or we are going to assess in terms of student performance. So these are always the specific intended learning outcome that we are going to define. It must be observable. So when I'm saying observable means as a teacher, I must be able to observe the change in behavior of the student. So change in behavior of the student in what sense? In the three domains of education. That is, as a teacher, I'm able to develop the knowledge part of my student. So cognitive ability need to be developed. I must be able to sharpen the skills related to that particular branch or subject at institute level, and how my student need to respond in a given situation. So behavior of the student. So when we said observable, as a teacher, I need to observe that is there any change in terms of behavior of the student. It may be cognitive, it may be psychomotor, or it may be the affective response of the student. So as a teacher, you also observed many a times when the students are available with the teacher in theory classes or the same student available in the laboratory classes, there is a change in the behavior of the student, how they are interacting with each other, how they're interacting with the lab attendant, how they're interacting with the faculty. So if the student know that what kind of behavior I need to show, what kind of response I need to give to this particular environment, and over the time the teacher is there to modify the behavior of the student. Say as a teacher, when we said you need to follow all kind of safety precaution in chemical engineering laboratory, if my students are not following those safety precaution, I know there may be chances of some sort of accident or some sort of mishappening in chemical engineering laboratory, and my students are following that. It means they are listening to me, they are giving response to the direction or instructions given by the faculty. If they are not following those instruction and direction, it means somewhere as a teacher I need to take disciplinary action against those students, so that it become habit of those students to become habitual of those teaching learning activities. When we said measurable, how the teacher is going to measure that student is able to do something or not? कैसे measure करेंगे? By asking questions. There may be written test organized by the teacher. So whatever assessment practices the teacher is going to follow, that help the teacher to measure that whether the student is able to achieve that learning outcome or not. Say when I said define something, define कैसे करेगा? It can be in viva voce, it can be in written test. When I'm saying demonstrate something, it can be in a practical environment, laboratory environment, or teacher need to demonstrate, or the student need to demonstrate the whole activity even in the theory class also. When I'm saying locate something, identify an error, so teacher or the student need to create an environment where the student is able to identify the error or identify the faults in a given machine or in a given working environment. So when we said measure, there are variety of tests the teacher can given to the student depending upon what kind of measurement you need to have. Accordingly, you need to select that testing environment. So it must be realistic. It must be realistic means my student is able to say, for example, if I'm saying my student is able to understand something, up to what extent he or she is able to understand, what level of understanding I'm able to develop, is my student is able to apply that learned information in a given problem. So if the student is able to apply that information in a given problem, it means higher level of understanding is developed among student. If my student is able to understand, memorize, it means this is only the theoretical information that is available with the candidate. So when we are defining those learning outcome, we must be realistic enough for defining those conditions. Say when I'm saying demonstrate the activity with the help of prototype model, demonstrate an activity with the help of a prototype model. Prototype model means in my laboratory there are all kind of resources available with my student to design that prototype model. Once he or she is able to design that prototype model, only then he or she is able to demonstrate something. Student will be able to demonstrate activity with the help of prototype model. वो 150 रुपए में मार्केट से बाय करके आपको डिमॉन्स्ट्रेट करके तो बता देगा, but level of understanding is not going to be developed because student was not the part of creation of that particular model. So when I'm saying realistic, if you are saying prototype model, the laboratory conditions need to be sufficient enough that student is able to create or design that prototype model by his or her own. So teacher need to assess the kind of facilities available at institute level also before defining those different learning outcomes. Nowadays, when resources are not available, there are many government schemes and policies available with the teacher to utilize resources from the nearby institution. Or if that resource is not also available, there are many things that are available online. So that kind of experiences we can provide to our student by finding out that information available online. So there are many YouTube recorded videos available, many projects available on different websites. So if those resources are not available at institute level, when the teacher is defining the learning objective, the teacher need to map the resources available offline as well as online before designing any teaching learning activity at institute level, because learning objective and learning outcomes will go hand by hand. टीचर ये नहीं कह सकता कि मेरा इंटेंशन तो ये था बट रिसोर्सेज वर नॉट अवेलेबल, दैट इज वाई माई स्टूडेंट इज नॉट एबल टू अचीव दिस लर्निंग आउटकम. If those resources are not available, map those resources available offline, online, virtually, and define learning outcome that your student is able to achieve. So be realistic when you are defining the learning outcomes in terms of student performance. It must be time framed. कितने academic days मिलते हैं हमें within a semester? Approximately. Yes, any member connected with us online? एक semester में more or less how many academic days available with us? 90 days approximately. एक semester में approximately there are 90 days available with us. So when we say student is able to achieve that learning outcome, the academic calendar is available with us. So as per the academic calendar, we need to analyze curriculum, interpret curriculum, define different lessons, and define different learning outcomes, that as per the demand of the subject, we are able to develop the knowledge, skill, and effective domain of our student performance. So we need to be more specific when it comes to defining different learning outcomes at institute level. So when it comes to defining different learning outcome, it is as per the Bloom's taxonomy. So when it comes to the taxonomy, it is derived from two Greek words, that is taxis and nomia. So when we said taxis, taxis means an arrangement, and when we said nomia, nomia presents distribution. So taxonomy means distribution by categories, or in simple terms, it is the classification of different skills that we need to develop among student population. So when it comes to the Bloom's taxonomy, Bloom's also define different levels of thinking as per the different classification. So it is at a very lower level, it is started from remembering. सो टेक्सोनॉमी किस चीज को रिप्रेजेंट करती है? इट इज डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन बाय कैटेगरी और डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन बाय क्लासिफिकेशन. सो ब्लूम्स टेक्सोनॉमी इज बेस्ड ऑन different kind of classification. Earlier, the different dimensions given by the Blooms as per the instructional objectives or learning objectives are knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. In the year 2000, it is being revised, and the new levels of taxonomy, Bloom's taxonomy, is remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So when it comes to writing different learning outcomes, so as a teacher, my learning objective or my intention is at the lower level, my student is able to remember information that is being delivered to them. My student is able to apply the level of understanding we are able to develop in a classroom environment. They are able to apply the learned information in a laboratory environment. The student is able to analyze the given information. The student is able to evaluate and create that information. So many of the students in our class are able to develop themselves up to the level of remembering, understanding, and applying. But when it comes to analysis, evaluation, and creation, it is the teacher who is going to create that kind of environment. So how the teacher is going to create that kind of environment? The kind of teaching strategies that is being selected by the teacher. So when I said my student is able to evaluate something, my student is able to create something, what kind of conditions I'm going to provide to my student to create something? So if as a teacher I'm giving written assignment again and again to my student for a subject, whether my student able to create something new? अगर मैं उसे रिटर्न असाइनमेंट ही दे जा रही हूँ, what kind of information I'm going to develop among student? How to write in a coherent and concise manner? My student is not able to create something out of that. When I'm using a problem based technique of learning in a classroom environment, so I will give problem to my student will solve the problem in presence of me as a faculty. So we are helping each other to create that kind of environment. My students are able to evaluate that amount of information. They are able to design something, create something new when the teacher is giving ill structured problem to the student. Ill-structured means student need to reframe the problem first, and after reframing the problem, student need to find out solutions for a given problem. So when we said creating something means creativity. So creativity needs two different kind of skills. Thinking skill, that is convergent thinking and divergent thinking. Convergent thinking means whenever the teacher is giving any problem to the student, that problem have a fixed kind of solution. आपने कोई प्रॉब्लम दिया, यू नो दिस पर्टिकुलर फार्मूला इज गोइंग टू वर्क फॉर अ प्रॉब्लम, स्टूडेंट उस फार्मूला को अप्लाई करेगा एंड गिव सोल्यूशन टू दैट प्रॉब्लम. When my purpose is to develop divergent thinking skill, higher creation ability, I will give an ill-structured problem. Student will reframe that problem. There may be multiple solution for a single problem. Every student or within a group, the student will brainstorm for that particular problem and find out variety of solutions for a given problem. So we are giving reflection-based activities to the student. That is the demand of new education policy 2020. So nowadays, when we said 21st century student, they know information is already available in abundance. If they want to learn, relearn information, it is not only the teacher who is going to provide information. There are number of experts and number of teachers available with the student just by the click of mouse. So student can select the source of information. So information is available with them, they are able to develop the lower level of understanding. Now as a teacher we need to use those classes for discussion based purposes, so that students are able to do something new out of that information. Yes, it totally depended upon the type and level of the student available at your institute. So if the level of the student is not that high, the teacher can create an environment, map the resources for the student, and give option to the students to go through that information and come prepared with that information. There may be small projects given to the student, there may be hands on activities given to the student, so that they can have a feel how to go for that kind of information. Even nowadays at primary education level, they are not focusing on memorization of information. So when they are saying an apple, or showing an object to the student is able, the student in a primary education is able to link with that object. He knows when the teacher is saying apple, how apple feels like and how apple look like. So they are working on the different educational domains. Cognitive, they are mapping their mind with the hand movement. So that is the demand of education system. So as a teacher we need to, learning objectives की जब हम बात करेंगे, when the teacher is defining different learning intended, these are also on the basis of the Bloom's taxonomy. The teacher is going to create an environment for the student, so that students are able to get something out of that particular environment or out of that information. So when it comes to defining learning outcomes as student level, it is again as per the level of the Bloom's taxonomy. So if you want your student to define something, first you need to reproduce that definition in a classroom environment. Student either record that information or note down that information, and then reproduce that information as and when asked by the teacher. If you want your student to design something, that kind of problem need to be given by you as a practice to your student in a classroom environment. Only then student become habitual to solve that kind of a problem. Otherwise what will they do? End of the semester they find out the question paper from the previous semester, they know, discuss, explain, write short note, इस unit से इतने question है, इस unit से इतने question है, I will memorize those statement and I am able to pass that particular subject. कुछ बच्चे तो इतनी भी कोशिश नहीं करेंगे, they will come prepare in an examination hall with all ready made information and then copy paste that information and able to get out of that subject. So when the teacher is going to create a kind of environment, only then there are chances that students are able to achieve those learning outcomes. So in the first or maybe third slide, we said when it comes to the learning outcomes, there are specific action verbs that we are going to use. So at the level of remembering, so as per the old Bloom's taxonomy, it is knowledge level. So as per the level of knowledge or remembering means recalling facts. Recalling fact means remembering. There are certain verbs that the teacher need to use while writing learning outcome. These are state, identify, select, define, name, match, cite, indicate, list, recall, recognize, select, recount, or illustrate. So these can be the different action verbs that we can use at the level of remembering. So next time when we are writing learning outcome, it is not what is, we can select any action verb out of this table. When it comes to the level of understanding, or as per the Bloom's taxonomy, old taxonomy, comprehension means capacity to see and understand different relationship. So associate, compare, convert, outline, summarize, arrange, distinguish, demonstrate, outline, report, restate, review, and suggest. When it comes to application, means you are going to use your knowledge collected previously. So student will be able to apply something, illustrate something. Now in the remembering there is illustration, so that is low level of illustration. So maybe a diagram is given to the student and teacher is asking some sort of illustration out of that. When we said application, the student need to define that problem and then illustrate that phenomena. Restructure, demonstrate, discover, dramatize, interpret, investigate, conduct, modify, operate, organize, classify, practice, predict, prepare, produce, schedule, sketch, solve, and translate. So these are the few action verbs that we are able to use at. These are not few actually. There are many action verbs available with us at each level of taxonomy. Analysis, differentiate, compare, critic, relate, select, debate in a verbal environment. Probe, structure, discriminate, experiment, distinguish, identify, question, solve, and test. At the level of synthesis, combine, assemble, compose, create, unify, formulate, design, integrate, propose, synthesize, systemize, propose, rearrange, reconstruct, reorganize, and revise. Evaluation, judging the value or appropriateness, evaluate, judge, defend, validate, prioritize, disapprove, revise, grade, justify, interpret, measure, and calculate. So there are many action verbs that are interchangeable. Interchangeable in the sense they are overlapping in different levels of taxonomy. So whenever the teacher is defining the statement, whenever the teacher is defining that learning outcome, depending upon what problem is being selected by the teacher, up to what extent the difficulty level of that problem is, that will define that whether it is related to analysis, whether it is related to synthesis, or whether it is related to the evaluation part. So complexity of the problem will define the degree of classification as per the Bloom's taxonomy. Now the question arises, for a given lesson, how many learning outcomes? एक लेसन के लिए आपकी कितनी लर्निंग आउटकम्स हो सकती हैं? कितनी होनी चाहिए? 5 होनी चाहिए, 6 होनी चाहिए? कितनी लर्निंग आउटकम्स नीड टू बी देयर?
Topics covered in that lesson.
Okay. Number of topics covered. Shrikant Sri sir said 5 to 6. Thank you very much, sir, for your reply. Samriti ma'am 4 to 5. Puneet Garg said 4 to 5.
Sometimes depends on the topic, ma'am. See how much vast is it.
Yeah, thank you very much, ma'am, for the input. Bhupinder Singh said, sir said 4 to 5. So, as rightly added by few of the participants, it is always vary according to the level of the study. So, when I'm said level of the study, diploma level, degree level, master level, PhD level. Say the subject is research methodology. For MTech level student, for PhD level student, the learning outcomes will vary. Master's की research methodology की understanding and the student in doctorate level, the level of understanding need to vary. As the level of understanding will vary, the learning outcome, amount of learning outcome will vary. Next is award type. So is it the classroom assessment or is it the final examination for which you are designing or evaluating different learning outcomes? So what kind of award? So when I'm saying award, if it is for the gradual performance efficiency of the student, in that sense, there may be one or two learning outcome that I want at class level for my student to achieve. But if it is for MST, preparation of MST 1 or internal test 1, there may be 5 to 6 learning outcomes in a unit that student need to develop. Next is the desired outcome. From where the desired outcome will come? It will come out of teacher intended objective. As a teacher, so while sitting on the podium of NITA Chandigarh, I cannot say or I cannot judge or evaluate the level of students available with you. It is the teacher who is going to create the environment at his or her institute. आप लोग अपनी क्लास के इन्वायरमेंट को बेटर जज कर सकते हो एज कंपेयर टू मी. So your desired outcome may be different as per the subject demand. The desired outcome may be different. So teacher practically need to think upon up to what level it is possible for me to develop the performance level of my student. So that can be the tentative learning outcome the teacher can define. So gradually we are improving the quality of the work. It is not that within a one semester it is possible for me to develop my student up to the level of creation. Maybe up to 7 semester or maybe up to 8 semester, my students of a specific branch are able to create something in a major project. Major project final semester में देते हैं ना, students are able to create something, but we are preparing for that major project started from the first day of that institute. जब वो फर्स्ट डे आता है, वी आर प्रिपेयरिंग फॉर दैट कैंडिडेट अप टू द लास्ट सेमेस्टर. सो ओवर द पीरियड ऑफ टाइम वी आर developing the performance of the student. So it is the teacher intended objective who are going to define that what can be the probable learning outcome for a given subject in a third semester or subject in a first semester. As per the level of the semester, again the level of excellence shown by the students also vary. हो सकता है फर्स्ट सेमेस्टर में स्टूडेंट इज नॉट एबल टू प्रेजेंट इन्फॉर्मेशन इन अ कॉन्फिडेंट मैनर, बट अप टू फिफ्थ सेमेस्टर द स्टूडेंट इज एबल टू प्रेजेंट इन्फॉर्मेशन इन फ्रंट ऑफ classroom audiences. So we are gradually improving the performance. Likewise, the teacher is going to develop the different learning outcomes among student population. So in nutshell, there is no set or good number of learning outcomes for a subject or course. We cannot say there are 4, there are 5, there are 6. It is totally dependent upon the subject, the environment, the level of the student, the desire of the teacher at large. The only one valid criteria is to set number of learning outcome must be able to support and enhance learning and provide optimum alignment with the content and resources. So learning outcomes are not going just from the mind of the teacher to the paper or to the coursework file. It is inlining all kind of practices followed at departmental level. आपका करिकुलम क्या है, what kind of infrastructure resources available with you, quality of admission, level of infrastructure available, what kind of expertise available at institute level or in that particular region, amount of the time allotted for that particular subject. So maybe there are subjects which demand 24 into 7 time of the faculty. There may be in a civil engineering subjects, say a laboratory environment of concrete lab, 24 घंटे में स्लैब सेटल होगा. Is that kind of flexibility given to the student to work 24 into 7? There are practicals in chemical engineering branch which took 12 to 16 hours. लैब में हम टाइम कितना दे रहे हैं? 2 घंटे का. अगर हमने टाइम ही 2 घंटे का अलाउ करा है स्टूडेंट को to use those resources, it means my learning outcomes are going to shrink accordingly. जितना मैं टाइम अलॉट करूंगी अकॉर्डिंगली माई स्टूडेंट इज एबल टू डू समथिंग. व्हाट काइंड ऑफ असेसमेंट प्रैक्टिसेस फॉलोड एट इंस्टीट्यूट लेवल? टीचर के पास कोई क्वेश्चन बैंक प्रिपेयर नहीं है, बट टीचर इज गोइंग टू कंडक्ट वाइवा वोसे ऑफ 40 स्टूडेंट. आपने पहले 10 बच्चों से सारे क्वेश्चन पूछ लिए, वही 10 क्वेश्चंस आप बाकी बच्चों के साथ रिपीट करोगे. So you are not giving a good kind of assessment or following a good kind of assessment practice in laboratory environment. So there are many factors that are interlinked with each other. So whenever the teacher is writing the learning outcome, these factors need to be considered by the teacher. So another thing that we need to consider over here is the alignment of the different learning outcomes. So on Friday, the last session that will be taken by Dr. Meenakshi Sood from CDC department, she is going to elaborate on this particular topic, but up to the basic level of understanding, when it comes to the alignment of the different learning outcome, first we need to define the aim. Aim means the program outcome. So program outcome always defined as per the vision and mission statement of your institute. Once those program outcomes are aligned with the vision and mission statement, there are certain learning outcomes the teacher need to design as per the course content available. Then after identifying the content, after analyzing the curriculum or the content and defining different learning outcome, the teacher need to select different teaching strategy. NEP 2020 demanding that teacher must use student-driven teaching strategies. So it is not the traditional lecture method that we are going to use. It is as per the choice of the student, as per the level of the subject you are going to teach. The teacher need to select a suitable teaching methodology for the student. After selecting a teaching methodology, the teacher need to create organized kind of experiences for the student. So what kind of experiences need to be there? अगर मैं अपनी क्लास में ब्लैक बोर्ड यूज करके पढ़ा रही हूँ, आई हैव अ प्रोजेक्टर, आई हैव अ पोडियम, आई हैव फैसिलिटी ऑफ इंटरनेट कनेक्टिविटी 24/7, but I am just standing over the podium and verbally explaining everything. When my student are presenting something in my class and I'm saying you have to utilize all kind of teaching aids available with you, my students are not able to create that kind of experience because When I'm teaching them, I'm not creating that kind of learning experience for my student. So organized learning experience, what you demand from your student, that learning experience need to be created by the teacher, followed by assessment. Whatever you are assessing, that must be taught by you beforehand. अगर आप नहीं पढ़ाओगे तो you are not, do not have right to assess that information. So your teaching need to be reflected in the assessment practices that is being followed by you. So alignment of learning outcome. So first the teacher need to write different learning outcome. It is as per the different categories or different levels of classification. So those learning outcomes, student learning in line with the assessment criteria. जब मैं कहती हूँ क्रिएट, इंजीनियरिंग में क्रिएशन हम कहाँ असेस करते हैं? प्रोजेक्ट्स में and laboratory environment mein. When I'm said define, it can be viva voce, it can be written test. When I'm saying evaluate something or analyze something, find out the appropriateness of something, I need to give two different situations from where my student can analyze, differentiate, find the appropriateness of one over the another. So I need to give that kind of assessment criteria as per the different learning outcomes I have designed. Provide or create learning opportunities. So whatever learning outcomes designed by the teacher need to create that kind of learning opportunities for the student. So after finding out those learning opportunity, the teacher is here to assess the performance of the student at classroom level. And finally, in final examination, use those assessment result. आपके पास जब एक इवैल्यूएशन का डेटा आ जाता है, आफ्टर एनालाइजिंग एंड इंटरप्रेटिंग द इवैल्यूएशन डेटा, management come to know that where the teacher is lacking, where infrastructure resources are lacking, where we need to improve the quality of admission, what kind of practices, what kind of flexibility, what kind of rule or policy alignment we need to perform so that institute can work as per the program outcomes. So आपकी जो evaluation है, that is mapped with the learning environment, with the learning outcome, the kind of policies and practices that is being followed at institute level. So final examination का score सिर्फ आपको teacher performance पे question नहीं है, it is also the question on management practices and policy and what kind of resources you are providing to your student. Okay, so alignment have many other different aspects also. So there are few of the examples at different levels of Bloom's taxonomy. So when we said, I'm giving just a hint that how we are able to write at per the different level. So I'm taking most of the examples from my field of specialization, that is chemical engineering. Likewise, you can develop these levels from your branch of specialization. So for a 7th semester student, when I'm dealing with the subject of environmental technology, I'm saying define CO2 fertilization effect. State the second law of thermodynamic, advantages and disadvantages of the technique photocatalysis over adsorption. Label the part of XYZ machine. Write the formula for calculating the shear force. At understanding level, explain the concept of flow of energy in an ecosystem. Differentiate between stress and strain, differentiate between good and bad conductors of heat, distinguish between grazing and detritus type of the food chain, give examples of good natural adsorbent which can be used in water treatment at domestic level, interpret the relationship between pH of the solution and degradation efficiency, project whether India will be able to achieve sustainable development goal by 2025 from the given set of data. So these can be as per the level of understanding. At apply level, demonstrate the principle of inertia. In laboratory environment, determine the pore size of the material concealed at specific temperature. Demonstrate the role of non-verbal behavior in communication. Calculate the cost of electricity consumption used while performing the process of photocatalytic degradation in direct sunlight. Calculate technical and commercial transmission losses in a given locality. So that is up to the level of applying. At problem solving level, there can be many problems given to the student. Identify causes of air pollution in a given locality. So they need to collect data from the municipal corporation first. They need to evaluate the data, map that data with the reports of IMD of that particular region. Only then they come to the conclusion what are the major causes of air pollution in a given locality. Locate a fault in the given process flow diagram of paper based industry. Interpret the optimized condition of enhanced efficiency of a given reaction time from the given preliminary data set. Judge the appropriateness of sustainable practices followed to achieve circular economy. Evaluate the effectiveness of teaching practices used for enhancing the student performance. Design and heat exchanger at laboratory scale for the skill development. Design a prototype model of bridge of a given specification. So these are all the problem solving skills that we are able to develop up to the level of analysis, evaluation, and creation. When it comes to writing the different learning outcomes, as per the discussion, whenever there is a written, we are in the process of writing different writing learning outcomes. First, we need to analyze our curriculum or syllabus of the subject. And as a teacher, whenever we are planning for any subject, for any course, I hope everybody is preparing a coursework file as per NBA criteria. So whenever we are designing our coursework file, the very first step is, as per the academic calendar, we are going to analyze the curriculum, distribute the topic in number of working days available with us, and find out that as per the subject demand, what kind of knowledge, what kind of skill, and what kind of ability we need to develop among student population. So this is as per the syllabus. And once the syllabus is analyzed and interpret as per the number of academic days, we need to find out what kind of resources available at institute level. आपने डिफाइन कर लिया कि ये नॉलेज चाहिए, ये एबिलिटी चाहिए, ये स्किल सेट चाहिए, बट वेदर रिसोर्सेज अवेलेबल एट इंस्टीट्यूट लेवल और नॉट. If they are not available, what will be the next course of action? Are you going to collaborate with any another institution? Are you going to map the online resources available with you? Are you going to develop some sort of tailor made material for the student? So specifically as a teacher, you are providing your input, or you are structuring information in a manner that may be not that organized, but some sort of experience you are going to give to your student with the help of any resource that is being identified by you. So we need to find out that after mapping all these things, what can be the probable ability, knowledge, and skill you are able to develop. So your course analysis, course interpretation will help you define what kind of teaching practices or what kind of assessment strategies you are going to follow in this particular subject. You know, students are very good when it comes to writing something. क्योंकि सेकेंड सेमेस्टर में आपने पढ़ाया था, दे आर वेरी गुड इन टर्म्स ऑफ सबमिशन ऑफ रिटन असाइनमेंट. So it is a clear hint to you that target is already achieved. Now, rather than giving written assignment, give some practice based exercise to the student. So मैम assignment नहीं लूंगी, I will have 5 to 10 minutes of presentation in a class. Every student will present information, and likewise I will evaluate their performance. I do not need that copy paste material again and again. So I will define the level of ability I need to develop among that student population. Start with a clear statement. So on the completion of this subject, course, or program, student should be able to demonstrate, express, or design. What kind of action verb we are using as per the level of Bloom's taxonomy. Learning outcome always written by using future tense. My student will be able to do. ये मैंने टेंटेटिवली डिसाइड कर लिया कब, इन द इनिशियल फेज ऑफ द सेमेस्टर, that after the completion of this particular subject, my student is able to do this. Choose a verb from a taxonomy. Avoid verbs that are susceptible to different interpretation of what action they require. Say when in examination we said write a short note. वो शॉर्ट कौन डिफाइन करेगा? कोई बच्चा 3 पेज भर देगा, कोई 2 पेज भर देगा, कोई 1 पेज भर देगा. We are not asking for a specific kind of information. When I'm saying discuss something, discussion can be face to face. It can never happen in a written environment. Discussion can be lengthy enough, discussion can be shorten enough depending upon the kind of information available with both the parties. So these are the susceptible words that we need not to use in teaching learning practices. This type of verb indicate in general behavior that cannot be objectively measured. So good learning outcome is always measurable, realistic, time framed. So these kind of verbs are not objectively measured. Say for example, the teacher need to avoid, the student is able to know about, understand, become aware of, appreciate, learn, become familiar with or think. मेरे जैसा कोई कह देगा मैं तो नहीं सोचती. We assess what we taught. हम वही assess करेंगे what we are going to teach in a class.